Jane Eyre is a 200-year-old Gothic novel and a behemoth of the literary canon. Assassin's Apprentice is the first book of an epic fantasy series from the 90s. Both represent my favorite novel and my favorite fantasy series of all time, respectively. Of course, beyond that, these two books and stories and characters have nothing more in common. They both open on a rainy day, which surely is a minor detail and coincidence, and it's not like that rain establishes a melancholic atmosphere that pervades the entirety of both narratives. Fitz, the lonely bastard, surely has nothing in common with Jane, the lonely orphan. And besides, even if they did share more similarities than that, I would be out of my mind to compare a lowly epic fantasy series to serious literature like Jane Eyre. Here's the thing about Robin Hobb. When I directly compare her work to Bronte's masterpiece, I come away appreciating Hobb's work more, not less. I can count the number of authors capable of that on one hand. The similarities between Jane Eyre and Fitz's story have always struck me as obvious, but thinking about them over the years has only deepened my appreciation for Hobb's literary genius. Jane Eyre and Fitz Chivalry Farseer speak to each other across time and genre, and in today's video, I want to capture that conversation and show how Hobb takes the structure of a beloved classic and extends it across 9 books, bridging the world building of epic fantasy and the beautiful sentence level work and narrative scope of literary craft. In a great novel, the opening scene functions as a thesis statement. Both Jane Eyre and Assassin's Apprentice prove this rule. Their first chapters are perfect microcosms of the themes and character arcs each book is going to explore. Jane Eyre opens on a rainy afternoon. Young Jane has sought refuge in a cozy window seat with a book. A thin curtain separates her from the rest of her family. She's briefly absorbed and happy in this fragile oasis, until she is discovered by her odious cousins who bully her incessantly. Assassin's Apprentice, by contrast, opens with an epigraph. A history of the 6 duchies is of necessity a history of its ruling family. When the narration begins in earnest, the true opening scene is revealed to be one of a mother losing her son. Fitz is brought to an outpost of Buckkeep by his grandfather, who can no longer take care of him. It's also a rainy day, and the cold plays the same role that it does in Jane Eyre. Somber, remorseless, isolating. He spends the night sleeping in the stables among some puppies in the warm hay, a temporary refuge from the cruelties lurking just around the corner. We see Regal is in this scene later, obliquely threatening Fitz. Both Jane and Fitz begin their stories in dark, isolated places, othered by their own families. Stylistically as well, they both tell their stories in the first person, creating immediate intimacy between character and reader. These openings foreshadow the rest of their lives. Fitz, sleeping with the puppies, embodies his essential character. He repeatedly endures circumstances most would find unbearable, always willing to make the ultimate sacrifice in service to country and family, which, as we learn in the opening line, are one and the same. Even the choice to begin the book with an attempt at a history of the Farseers instead of the actual scene of his abandonment mirrors how Fitz compulsively puts family before himself. Similarly, the first 2 paragraphs of Jane Eyre, "There was no possibility of taking a walk that day," illustrate quite simply how different Jane is from the rest of her adoptive family. They like to go on walks, and she doesn't. The subsequent confrontation between her and John Reed captures her impassioned defiance in the face of deceit and all she considers wrong. She's unable to stop herself from responding to his taunts. The words rip out of her before she can even consider them. "Wicked and cruel boy. You are like a murderer. You are like a slave driver. You are like the Roman emperors." She hits him back in a fury of righteousness. "I don't very well know what I did with my hands, but he called me rat, rat. What a fury to fly at Master John. Did ever anybody see such a picture of passion? Passion and integrity are at the center of Jane's soul, much like how sacrifice and loyalty are at the center of Fitz. Notice the difference. When threatened, Jane explodes into a righteous fury and strikes back. Fitz, facing similar threats from Regal, endures silently. Both responses stem from their core natures, but lead them down different paths. yet, despite these different approaches, the structural similarities between their stories continue throughout both narratives. Both Jane Eyre and Fitz form crucial childhood friendships that shape their worldview. Helen Burns teaches Jane about spiritual resilience, while The Fool introduces Fitz to the concept of catalyst and change. Both are guided by mentors who recognize their potential despite their outsider status. Both experience profound heartbreak in very similar ways before eventually finding their place in the world. But here's what makes these works particularly sophisticated. A lot of people often refer to just the Farseer trilogy, which is a coming of age, but it misses the broader picture of Fitz's story, which is that it continues beyond his coming of age, and really we get to see the entirety of his life. Both Jane and Fitz continue to change long after they reach adulthood. The term Bildungsroman, which literally translates as formative or educational novel, is a little more precise. It captures how their stories begin in youth and follow the characters to a point of stability in their lives, by which I mean they are completely done changing fundamentally by the end of their story. Fitz is a masterpiece of this form. Hobb extends the Bildungsroman across 9 books, each one deepening our understanding of his inner and outer worlds. The Realm of the Elderlings is remarkable for the way that its trilogies are structured. The Farseer trilogy captures Fitz's coming of age. The other trilogies that I don't really talk about in this video, Liveship and Rainwild Chronicles, serve a crucial function in this extended Bildungsroman. Like the years between Jane's childhood at Gateshead and her adult reunion with Rochester, these books allow for the passage of time that make Fitz's eventual stability feel earned rather than rushed. When we return to an older Fitz and Tawny Man, both character and reader have lived through the intervening years. Here's what makes Hobb's achievement even more remarkable. She accomplishes all of this while working within fantasy's constraints. Where Bronte uses gothic elements sparingly, mysterious laughter, a hidden madwoman, Hobb weaves magic through every aspect of the narrative. The wit and skill aren't just fantasy elements, they're integral to Fitz's psychological development, much like how Jane's spiritual visions reflect her inner growth. This is ultimately what makes Hobb's work so remarkable. She takes the emotional precision and structural sophistication of a masterpiece like Jane Eyre and extends that across 9 books, deepening rather than diluting its impact. Fitz's interiority rivals Jane's in its complexity. His journey matches, if not extends hers in scope, and his final stability feels just as hard-won. If Charlotte Bronte is remembered and revered as one of literature's greatest voices, then Robin Hobb deserves recognition as her equal. A writer who proves that fantasy can achieve the same psychological depth and narrative mastery as any work in the literary canon. This video essay was really hard for me to write for a variety of reasons. I love Robin Hobb. Her work is so important to me. Looking at my channel, it wouldn't be that obvious because I almost never talk about her. And I think it's just because it's really easy to talk about why something is bad, but talking about why you love something is difficult. Yeah, I tried several times to make this video essay, and I have a version of the script that is a little bit more personal and vulnerable and talks about my own story of coming to Robin Hobb's work and Jane Eyre, and I decided that I would put that up as a Substack post. So if anyone is interested in reading that, I will put that link in the description. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you've enjoyed this comparison as much as I have. I've been thinking about the similarities between Jane Eyre and Fitz's story for literally half a decade at this point. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. The first spoilery moment I want to discuss is when Fitz has to leave behind Molly and his unborn child. This moment resonates powerfully with the point in Jane Eyre where she has to leave Mr. Rochester behind because of his marriage to Bertha. In both cases, these moments build on the central nature of both Jane and Fitz. Fitz, once again, sacrificing everything because of the throne, and Jane, once again, choosing her integrity and free will over a life of spiritual imprisonment. If this was a coming-of-age story, we would have ended with the Farseer trilogy and Fitz would have never gone back to Molly. But when he finally does reunite with her in Fool's Fate, there's so much joy in that moment. Similarly, Jane also returns back to Mr. Rochester at the end of her story, and this time they can be with each other as equals without compromising Jane's free will. Another parallel between these stories I would bring up is institutional acceptance. Both outcasts eventually gain recognition from the very systems that rejected them in the beginning. Jane inherits wealth and social standing, while Fitz is finally acknowledged as Prince Fitzchivalry in Fool's Quest. This acceptance only comes after they've proven themselves repeatedly, recognition that should have been their birthright. Hobb structures Fitz's adult happiness very carefully in these 10-year cycles. His peaceful years with Night Eyes between Farseer and Tawnyman, then his decade of domestic contentment with Molly between Tawnyman and Fitz and the Fool. The bittersweet truth is that Fitz can only ever have one or the other, Night Eyes or Molly, but never both simultaneously. Hobb's crowning achievement is introducing Bee as a second first-person narrator in the final trilogy. After 6 books of developing one voice across decades, Hobb introduces another in the midnight hour that feels immediately distinct and authentic. It's a remarkable demonstration of narrative range that Bee comes onto the page so fully realized. Fitz's ultimate sacrifice isn't dying for his kings. It's being repeatedly denied meaningful relationships with his children. Nettle, Dutiful, and Bee all have moments of connection with him, but circumstances always intervene. Only with Hap does Fitz truly get to father a child over the years, proving that he did have the capacity. It's heartbreaking how he perpetuates the same abandonment trauma he suffered from Chivalry's death. That is Hobb's genius. She builds on Bronte's blueprint, then carries it further, across worlds and decades and generations.